Welcome to Gartner ThinkCast. I'm Alexis Waringa. Today we're revisiting a conversation we started late last year with Gartner Senior Director Analyst Deepak Seth. Last time we explored the future of AI implementation, what's real, what's hype, and what CIOs need to do right now. Today we're picking up that thread with a twist. As AI continues to spread into every corner of business and life, a counter-movement is emerging. People are starting to ask, can I trust this content, and was a human behind it? Deepak has been researching where all of this is heading and how we can already look towards our grocery aisles and shampoo bottles for some surprising parallels. So with that, Deepak, welcome back.
So excited to be back on the show. Thanks, Alexis. I remember we did the show last year and it did really, really well. So thanks to our wonderful audience. Would love to take this conversation forward. Go ahead. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, it really seemed to strike a chord with our audience last time. So last time we spoke, you had a lot to say about the future of AI implementation. Has anything shifted since then? And what's been top of mind for you now that we're well into 2026?
I think if I were to respond to this question in one word, it would be trust. Trust has become paramount. So, what has happened is with this proliferation of AI around us, people are getting a bit confused. People are not able to distinguish reality, fact from fiction, that kind of stuff. And it becomes what happens as a result of that. Adoption of this great technology can get vitiated because people are not able to figure out what they can trust and what they cannot trust. So it's a matter of key concerns not only for individuals but also for enterprises and governments. So yes, we have to figure out how to address this trust question, which is so paramount in the minds of people.
And you've been writing about this in what you call the AI-free trust revolution. Can you break that down for us? What would AI-free certification actually look like, and how far out are we before we might start even seeing it?
Great, Alexis. Yeah, and this ties back to the thing which you were mentioning about the grocery aisle and the shampoo bottles. We are all very comfortable and familiar seeing labels like BPA free, paraben free on the shampoo bottles and gluten free on the food we eat. We also see organic labels on food, and we trust that food to be more purer or better for us, kind of thing. Similarly, what could happen is this is what I wrote about as a part of one of the Daryl Plummer's 7 major disruptions for from 2025 to 2030 was about this renewed focus in human created content, and associated with that this concept of AI free. So certifications related to that have not emerged yet, but I can very well visualize them happening in the near future, in the next 1 to 3 years. BBC recently carried a story about that, how there is this renewed demand for people looking for AI free certifications. And as we take this conversation further, I'm sure I'll get an opportunity to share some examples of how this is playing out in the marketplace and in the minds of people.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing some self-reporting from content creators on the internet, from artists to authors to musicians who are very clearly labeling their content as AI free and their full account as AI free, and even seeing some boycott certain other content creators who are using AI. And it seems like there is a level of trust in there right now. Do you think third-party certifiers might emerge?
Yes. Third-party certifiers would emerge. Organizations themselves might certify the content, and then people, depending upon how much they trust the organization, can take it on its face value or not. Because many of those labels on the shampoo bottles, BPA free, paraben free, and others, we are relying on the vendor themselves to certify the content as being AI free. But related to that is another important question: is whether AI free content will be able to drive a premium. Yeah, right now those labels on the products like the BPA free, paraben free, gluten free, organizations are going ahead and putting those labels because they know that they will be able to just get a premium for that. So in certain areas of activity, especially in content like printed works and in movies and stuff, people may be willing to pay a premium for that. Right now also means if we go to a store and we are buying furniture, sometimes machine made furniture, human furniture may be at a premium, or some artifacts, and we as humans are willing to pay a premium for that. Yeah, a Van Gogh original will always command a premium over a machine generated copy of the same. So similarly, it could play out in this ecosystem as well.
That's true. Seeing the human touch as adding extra value there. So, AI free is clearly resonating with people, but realistically, AI isn't going anywhere. So, how do organizations balance the growing demand for AI free content with the reality that AI is already woven into all of their operations?
That is such a great question. Yeah, I think New York Times had carried a story not too long ago about an individual trying to live his entire day without AI, and apparently turned out to it was a near impossible task. Yeah, because simple thing as trying to find directions to go anywhere to ordering stuff means everything relies on AI. So yes, it will be a difficult task, but an associated concept which is very relevant and which could play out even more is around governance. Yeah, um, how you govern AI within an enterprise. What are the guardrails you establish with AI? How do you establish where the content or what the context of AI is will play an important role in determining, as you can say, the provenance of AI, so that people can know, okay, for certain kinds of tasks, maybe they are fine it being 100% AI. Or for certain other kinds of outputs and tasks, maybe they want 0% AI and 100% human. So it might be a graded approach for technologies and people figuring out how much of AI is acceptable in what kinds of for what kinds of activities and tasks.
So, when we think about what strong AI governance actually looks like in practice, if a CIO came to you today and said, "We need guardrails," where would you advise them to start?
So, if I were to respond flippantly, I say, hey, start with some of my published content. Yeah, I wrote the journey guide on AI governance, trust, risk, and security management. And there's another interesting Gartner insights around 6 AI ethical use case stories. Those are two good places to start. But yeah, on a serious note, one thing I like reminding clients about is, hey, governance is not just about enforcement. Yeah, enforcement of and compliance and controls. Governance is about engagement, enablement, and enforcement. So depending upon where you are in your AI journey, where you are in your AI initiative, you would have this interplay of these three capabilities. So when you are innovating, you need more of engagement and enablement. When you are deploying certain things in production, there has to be more of enforcement. And when you think about the governance and those some of the great Gartner content describes how you set up the governance framework, how governance is not just about establishing the controls, but in case of AI, but it is also about continued observability. Because what can happen is an AI model which was not hallucinating can start hallucinating. An AI model which was not exhibiting bias can start exhibiting bias. So it's not like you fill up your gas tank once and forget about it. You have to continuously monitor what's going on and then take corrective action. And it's a combination of people, process, and technology. So on the people front, you will be setting up the AI governance committees, councils, establishing in terms of the process, you will be setting up the controls and the guidelines. And in terms of the technology, there's a whole stack of tools which are in the realm of the AI governance platforms or trust, risk, and security management tools, which you may need to implement as part of your ecosystem to make governance real for you. And governance may sometimes lag the actual technology. Yeah, sometimes I jokingly say, hey, Wright brothers didn't have to file a flight plan with air traffic control before they flew their first plane. Yeah, so ATC came after aviation became real. The traffic lights came after the cars became real. So this slight lag of governance is okay, but it can't be too far behind. Otherwise, you'll see those crashes starting to happen.
Yeah, I know. I, for one, am thankful for the ATC and traffic lights with the amount of air traffic and cars we have on the roads now. In this theme, we're already seeing some high profile examples that seem to be related. Are these early warning signs, or is this becoming the new normal for how organizations will need to think about responsible AI?
Great question. Yeah, some recent news stories have brought this issue to the fore, kind of thing. So, Sora means OpenAI had come out with Sora, which was this technology where you could enter text and it would generate videos on the basis of that. I remember when it came out, I was teaching as an adjunct at a local university, and I had um, at entered a prompt and created a video and shared it with the class. And I said, hey, did you notice anything with the video? And there were a lot of bias and related things which came up in the video which was generated, like stuff which I had not entered in the prompt got reflected in the video. And at that point of time itself, I was thinking, wow, this may be a disaster waiting to happen. But looks like there are several other considerations in addition to the bias, hallucinations, and copyrighted content and stuff which came into play. And then Disney walked out of the deal, $1 billion deal with Sora. They have decided to back out from that. Also, recently, Hachette, the book publishers, decided to call back a novel which had already published in the UK, but they were planning to release it in the US, and they called it back because it had too much AI generated content. So this is just a reminder of how there is this growing recognition or awareness amongst people that all AI all the time may not be the way to go. There needs to be this calibration, which I spoke about earlier, about depending upon what the audience is, what the kind of content is, how much AI can be acceptable.
And speaking of that, that's not even just audience preference at this point. This is for making sure your business isn't held liable for a tool going astray there. This isn't simply just, there's that level of audiences want books and things that are written by real people, but at the same time, it's for your own benefit to make sure you know what's being put out there.
Absolutely. And if you are an organization, and I'm glad you brought up the liability question. So a major consulting house had to pay a huge fine in Australia because the report which they had created for the government had AI generated hallucinated content in it, which got detected later on down the road, and they had to pay a huge fine for it. I won't name the company, but yeah, I mean, this thing is for real. Because what happened is, because people sometimes it's a question of misplaced trust. I'm sure the consultants who were working on that project assume that the AI generated content is 100% accurate and justifiable to use, and they put it in the content. But it's very soon, this will be recognized as sloppy work, yeah. And so this cannot be done. So, and and since they were charged a penalty for that, the liability question is also paramount. So it's not just that the audience or the consumers of the content have to be mindful of it. The creators of the content have to be equally mindful of it. Yeah, great point, Alexis.
So, taking a step back to context, last time we talked, you mentioned CIOs should be building a context strategy. That data tells AI what, but context tells AI how. Can you expand on that and how it relates to this AI-free disruption?
Yeah, absolutely. Means context. If you attended any of the Gartner summits recently, we have been talking about how context is king, queen, or president, or whatever. Means context is paramount. So with data, we have stuff to build AI upon. But context, as I said earlier, also last time, it provides all the relevance of the data and framing it for what is being talked about. So in context of AI free also, again the context word came up. Is in context of AI free, context is important because it will help establish the guardrails according to which AI has to respond to a certain question or perform a certain task. So AI without context is the proverbial tale of a monkey being handed a sword by a king, assuming that it would do the right things with it, kind of thing. So the context is what will provide the guardrails for which AI, based on which AI can perform effectively.
I once had a teacher in school say, a text without a context is a pretext for trouble.
Wow, that's a good one. I need to note that and then use that in my client conversation. Thanks, Alexis.
Yeah. So, if you're a CIO listening to this and thinking about how to navigate this tension between AI free governance and context, what's the one thing you tell them to focus on this year?
So if I'm glad the way it brings it full circle. We started off talking by trust, and my guidance to CIOs, CDAOs, Chief Data and Analytics Officers, and AI leaders in companies is two words: build trust. Yeah. And so this trust How does one build trust? Trust is built by making sure that the content is verified, content is has good provenance, the AI generated content is relevant, is valid, is delivering the value which people are looking at it from. So, and trust cannot be built in a day. It takes humans take time in building trust. And so sometimes so you have to think about trust in context of humans trusting AI. And in many systems it may be about AI trusting AI, yeah, because as people are building agentic workflows, the trust would be every element in the value chain figuring out that it can trust what it is getting as input from other elements in the value chain. So it is not just in context of human and AI. Trust is also paramount in context of AI to AI communications as part of agentic workflows. So those are the kind of things which CIOs, CDOs, and AI leaders will have to be mindful of, building trust with their stakeholders regarding usage of AI.
What about vendors? What do they need to be mindful of right now?
So vendors means, interestingly, I was recently sitting on a vendor demo, and they were showing agents working with each other, and I just posed a basic question and saying, hey, what about if a human needs to take over at any stage? How are you making, would that transfer be seamless? And it caught them by surprise, kind of thing. So so think of it like, if you we have got used to automated autopilots in planes kind of thing, yeah. But if the human has to take over, it should be able to take it over seamlessly, yeah. And we have seen those disasters happen, a couple of air accidents few years ago, when that transfer to the human was not seamless. So human interoperability is something which vendors cannot ignore. Like, at any stage, even if you have built a true agentic workflow, you're thinking of an entirely automated process, but what if the human has to intervene in the process? You have to make sure that the technologies which you are rolling out allow that human interoperability. So don't just take the human out of the mix. AI deployments in the very near future for most enterprises will be all about human plus AI. So make that interoperability work in the solutions and technologies you are building, would be my advice to vendors.
Airplanes seem to be a great metaphor for this, from what you mentioned about governance with air traffic control to now technology really being a key part of what keeps airplane tools running and whatnot. But I don't want to board that plane if there's not a human pilot on board.
I know people, but increasingly, means as we see, sadly, as we see warfare play out right now, means it's not human pilots, it's drones doing a lot of the work. So ostensibly there's a human behind the drones, but then mistakes happening in targeting and all that kind of stuff. So means AI still has a AI will become a driver of lots what's going on, but taking the human out of the mix entirely and not even planning for this human interoperability, I think is a disaster waiting to happen, kind of thing. So we'll have to be mindful of that.
So, to tie all of this up while looking even further ahead, do you think we'll eventually see a spectrum where some content is certified AI free, some is maybe AI assisted, and some is fully AI generated? Or will consumers just choose based on their preference?
So it could be consumer driven, and as we spoke about, it could be task driven kind of thing. Also, organizations may set up internal guardrails based on what is being performed, how much AI would be justified for that. Also means sometimes people talk about human in the loop, yeah, but humans can't be in the loop all the time. AI and agents and stuff will be working 24/7, 365. Humans work only 9 hours a day, and then if you put human to check every action of AI, then the human becomes a bottleneck. So what could happen in the future is, and Gartner has written about that extensively, is this concept of guardian agents. Or you could have one set of agents or AI proposing a task, and you could have another set of AI or agents validating that and calling it out for what's right and what's wrong, and then true exceptions get pushed pushed upwards for the humans to take a look, Bob. So this transition from human in the loop to human on the loop before we get to totally human out of the loop. And obviously, there would be certain tasks where humans will be out of the loop. We have to be ready for that too. But but there's still a lot of areas where humans need to be in the loop. And so this whole conversation around context, around governance, and around judgment, human judgment would still be very, very, very important.
Thank you for tying all that together. I have one last question to end on. Last time you mentioned your must-read business book recommendations. Is there anything you're currently reading right now that you'd like to recommend for our audience?
Well, you know what? That's a great question. I love this question every time, and at this time, I think my response will surprise you a bit. Every couple of years, I reread Joseph Heller's Catch 22. Yeah, and and some would wonder, like, okay, why Catch 22 is not a business book? Why is it relevant in context of what we are talking about right now? But Catch 22 is an example of this extreme of how when even well established processes, even if you do not follow them logically, they may lead to very meaningless kind of actions, kind of thing. So even as AI is proliferating, it is resulting in some catch 22 situations. Yeah. So AI is great, but AI may hallucinate. So you are fearful of using it for your most high value tasks because you don't want an AI agent to make a loan decision for a client if you know that it can hallucinate. So that's a catch 22 situation, a very, very powerful tool, but you cannot use it because it has a propensity to hallucinate. So what do we do in a situation like this? So I find it to be a fascinating read. Every time I read it, I find some new nuggets pop out from it. Even as we roll out AI proliferates, we'll have a lot of catch 22 situations. And how do we deal with them through this framing of context, governance, value, judgment? Means is a conversation I'm sure we'll continue to have in the future. Maybe we'll pick the threads again in the next time we meet.
Yeah, as you know, it's a surprising answer, but the way you described it, I understand and it makes sense. And I think sometimes it's good to get our brain into maybe the way fiction spaces even can help us rethink new things happening in our world. So makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ellen.
Well, thank you so much, Deepak, for joining. And thank you to everyone for listening in to this latest episode of ThinkCast featuring Gartner's Senior Director Analyst, Deepak Seth. To learn more about this topic, follow the links in the notes. ThinkCast will be back wherever you listen to podcasts a week from today. In the meantime, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with a colleague so neither of you will miss it.